since October 7th, incidents of hate are rising in Canada. How concerned are you about the rising threat, and what more can your government do to ease the tension?
Well, first of all, I think we all need to be extremely concerned about the rise in tensions, the rise in threats of violence, the rise in actual acts of violence, and the rise in hatred. And I think one of the most important things for all of us to do is to remember who we are as Canadians. When the Quebec City mosque shooting happened, members of the Jewish community stepped up in support of the local mosque here in the Soo. When there were terrible incidents of anti-Semitism in Canada and in the United States over the past years, the Muslim community showed up at the synagogue here in the Soo. Because Canadians stand up for each other. We hear each other's pain and grief and support each other. And yes, what's happening in the Middle East right now is causing a lot of devastating emotions. Fear, anger, grief on all sorts of different communities, but particularly both the Muslim and the Jewish communities across Canada. And what we need to do as Canadians is remember who we are as we lean on each other, as we go out and visit our friends in the Jewish community, stand with our friends in the Muslim community, participate in calls for peace, for significant humanitarian pause, for getting hostages out, getting Canadian citizens out of Gaza, flowing in humanitarian aid and coming together as a community, not because we're all going to agree in every way on the next steps going forward, but because we can all agree that we need to be there for each other and that we don't wish ill on any of our neighbors in this country, regardless of what's happening around the world. So I want to thank all the community leaders right across the country who've been working so hard to bring together Canadians who are scared, who are angry, to remember who they are, to listen to each other, and to work together to build a better future and more peace here in Canada, because that's how we help create a lasting solution in the Middle East.
Wow, you know, it's amazing, Tamara Ugolini, when we go out to cover these pro-Hamas demonstrations, they are so vile, they get physical, they get abusive, even to some members of the mainstream media. They'll call them part of the Zionist news network. They call on the death for Jews. They call on the eradication of Israel. Funny thing is, you know, I went to Christie Pitts on Sunday with Lincoln Jay to chronicle a rally for the 242 hostages being held in Gaza. Some of them are infants, some are children, some are seniors, some are Holocaust survivors, if you can imagine. They're being held presumably in some tunnel in Gaza. And a couple of things are notable. You'll see, yes, there's a lot of Israeli flags there, but you'll see so many Canadian flags in the crowd as well. I think I've seen at one pro-Hamas demonstration, one Canadian flag. And what's more, you didn't hear people breaking out into chants to wipe Islamic nations off the face of the earth. You didn't hear chants about killing or gassing or harming Muslims. No, it was all positive. And that's the difference. I guess the point I'm getting to when it comes to blackface giving us that big word salad about all coming together is that why is there, when they finally do call out anti-Semitism, our political leaders, whether it's Mayor Chow of Toronto or blackface, why do they also bring up, you know, it's typically we condemn anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia. Where are the Islamophobic acts right now? I mean, like, are you kidding me? Why is there this moral equivalence going on right now. I think it's just politics. They're looking at the numbers. They don't want to offend a significant voting base. And that's why they're trying to play it both ways, Tamara.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still so soft. He took, what was that, 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes roughly, to say basically nothing. I was getting so bored just sitting here listening to him ramble on and on and on, for a word salad, to not say anything at all. There needs to be some hard stances taken here, and we need to consider how these individuals got into this country and what their motives are here, and whether or not our immigration policies are really serving the vested best interests of Canada and
100%.
Canadians as a country, because this didn't just come out of nowhere. This has been, an underground proliferation coming into the country for years. And are we adequately vetting the people who are coming into the country, and do they actually want to become Canadian? And if they don't want to fly the Canadian flag and they want to espouse this dangerous speech, then what is happening here, and what actions are being taken by the government to ensure that we have a process in place to build Canada as a country of people who are vested in actual Canadianship, if that's not a word, but you get my point. It's that, we can't have this segregationist country being built upon, and that's what you're seeing happening now.
And, I'm getting a little tired of this. Blackface said it himself. He's calling for a significant humanitarian pause in Gaza. I don't think there's been any army in the history of the world that goes out of their way not to harm civilians as the IDF. They give advance notice via social media and leaflet dropping. We're coming into this area. If you're a civilian, get out of town. This hospital that keeps coming up where they're running out of food and fuel and drinking water. The problem with having a significant humanitarian pause is that would allow presumably Hamas terrorists who are underneath the hospital to get out. And this is what Israel is doing. They are cutting off Hamas to the last terrorist, period. Benjamin Netanyahu said a couple of days ago, if the U.S. on September 11th, 2001 experienced 20 9/11s, and he said 20 9/11s because if you look at the amount of population, Tamara, in Israel and the number of death victims, would the U.S. listen to any call from any nation for a significant humanitarian pause in going after the butchers that caused all that carnage? Absolutely not. So this is, the situation we're in. And why isn't it this? If you want a significant humanitarian pause, maybe even the end of this war, there is one thing to be done, isn't there? Release those 242 hostages. Why does this not come up? Whether it's our heads of state or the demonstrators chanting from the river to the sea we see every weekend.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the Conservative, the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, he has been taking a hard stance on some of these things, and largely with a focus, I think, on what's happening here in Canada at home. We have a video here to share with you that he calls on anyone who participates in these horrific attacks to be jailed. But I mean, thanks to Justin Trudeau's liberal catch and release policies, I don't see that happening in the near future.
Conservatives call for Canadians to remain united and to avoid importing the violence we see around the world into our country. You can have any opinion you want about what's happening in the Middle East. That's your business. But you do not have the right to attack your fellow Canadians. That is not acceptable, and Conservatives call for anyone who's been involved in these terrorist attacks to be immediately arrested and jailed. All levels of government should work to protect Canadians against this terrorism. Antisemitism is an age-old evil. We must speak out against it every day and every way. And our governments must take tangible action to protect against that evil. I should also add that we should immediately ban terrorist or all terrorist organizations in Canada. I believe that some of this terrorism has been incited by the IRGC, which is the Iranian government's terrorist arm. Conservatives have been calling for the IRGC to be banned for years. Trudeau continues to allow them to live in peace and comfort, and while they incite and instigate terrorism on our soil. Ban these terrorists and send the tyrants from Tehran that are living in this country back where they came from. We should have no time, no patience, and no room for IRGC terrorists here in Canada.
Wow, that is such refreshing honesty, Tamara. I think that goes a long way in explaining why the latest poll that came out yesterday shows the Conservatives headed for more than 200 seats in the next election, whereas the Liberals less than 70. He's calling it out. I mean, of course, the IRGC should be designated as a terrorist group, as it is in many nations, because Iran, at the end of the day, and by the way, someone who's really deserves a lot of blame for this indirectly, or maybe even directly, is the Joe Biden administration. When Trump was in office, we had a boot on Iran's neck. They were, I think, producing or selling less than 200,000 barrels of oil a day. Now it's more than 4 million. And right now, the Iranian regime, the sanctions haven't been lifted, but they're just not enforced, which means they don't exist. Right now, this regime is flush with billions of dollars, and it's going to Hamas, it's going to Hezbollah. Remember, Iran is very clear. They say this publicly. This is their regime. Israel is the little Satan. The U.S. is the big Satan. I guess everyone in between in the West, we're all, I guess, medium-sized Satans. And that is why you see the funding for thousands and thousands of rockets that are being leveled at Israel.
That's a clip from the Rebel News Daily Roundup, which runs weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern, and it features an array of rebels providing commentary and feedback on the newsiest news items of the day. Sometimes it's myself, Tamara Ugolini, our editor-in-chief, Sheila Gunn-Reid, and our mission specialist, David Menzies, alongside your other favorite Rebel personalities. If you join us through Rumble, you can give us what is called a Rumble rant, and through a small monetary donation, you can have your comment read on air by one of us. Whether it's a tip or your opinion, we always love hearing from our viewers, because without your support, we couldn't do the work that we do. So thanks for your support, and we'll see you on the Daily Roundup from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern on weekdays. See you there.
Do you want to start feeling like your pre-COVID self again? You're not alone. The wellness company's Spike Support Formula is an all-natural supplement to help people do just that. It was created by cardiologist Peter McCullough and his expert team of doctors to help the people experiencing effects from COVID and the you-know-what.
Go to twc.health/rebel today.